welcome back to this debate special on World Mental Health Day. And time now for some of your tweets. Guys, in no particular order, you can take these as they come. Managers in all careers have a responsibility to be there for their employees. Are football managers disconnected from their players and too focused on other areas of the game, such as tactics and coaching?
From my experience, I think it varies from manager to manager. I think some are more aware of issues than others. I think one that springs to mind we spoke about previously, David Flitcroft, who has real awareness of these issues because he's dealt with these issues not necessarily himself, but with people around him previously. And
he was brilliant with me.
Was Chris's manager at Bury when he had problems. So for me, it varies from manager to manager. I think there is a responsibility there, and that's for us to work with people from the LMA, for example, and the League Managers Association, and then there probably needs to be that education amongst managers across the board, players across the board, and then coming together to try and help.
I was lucky at that point, yeah. I was lucky because obviously I was at Bury and Dave had been through a similar sort of thing, and he said to me straight away, you need to go to the PFA, you need to get help. So I was lucky in that respect that he knew, as a manager, my manager, I went to him and said, listen, you're going to have to rip my contract up. I can't play anymore. And I told him the issues, and he told me, right, well, you need to do this. You need to go to the PFA. So, in that respect, I was lucky that he was my manager at the time.
OK, Chris, should the football associations make it mandatory that the clubs employ a psychologist, just as you would employ a physio?
Yeah, I think so. For me, but I think it's employer
counsellor, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think it needs to be the right person. But for me, I think that might suit one player, it might not suit the other player. So.
But it'd be so open that they are. Also, the individual as well.
If the individual's dealing with, one, I think you need to find someone that you trust, and Ben spoke about that as well. You need to find someone that you trust. So I don't really think that having someone there is because. Going away from the subject, but going to physios, we've all had physios that are good, and we've all had physios that are bad. But that's my taking it. The other players that might have liked the ones that I didn't like.
Yes.
So you need to find the balance.
You've got to click with them, haven't you?
I've been there with when the clubs had a psychologist, and a few of the players when we've spoken, afterwards, say how did that go? And they don't want to speak openly with the psychologist because they're employed by the football club. So there's that concern.
Conflict.
Yeah, conflict, that concern as to whether there's that independence there. And obviously professional standards require that it's confidential and it shouldn't leak, but the nature of a sport is that often things get leaked and so perhaps it wouldn't be on the clubs to do that, but maybe like some independence or somebody that networks around a few clubs.
But I think also it always seems to be that something like this comes up when results, managers or, the club will bring in people when results are going against them. When things are not great, they'll go and, we'll try this, we'll try that. And players automatically think, I ain't going to speak to him or her because he's going to take everything back to the manager, going to take everything to the coach. So what I'm saying is that if you're winning, there still needs to be people around that you can speak to. If you're getting beat, there still needs to be people around that, you can't just have it because you're getting beat that all of a sudden, there's a psychologist turns up, let's go and speak to him, he's going to cure everything. It doesn't work like that.
No.
I'll be guilty of that because I've been at a club, I won't name the club, but a psychologist did come in. And this was before what I'd went through, and I was like, no way, why would you need that for? I'm not going to speak to them. It's ridiculous, and it was almost a laugh in the changing room that somebody had come in. But now, if somebody come in now, having been I went through it, then I'd go straight to them all day long.
I think there's still that concern though that if you go to see the psychologist or even a club doctor or whatever, then people are aware of that. So people might ask the question, or if you're not playing particularly well for whatever reason, and then they see that you go see the psychologist, but they can't ask what it's about, but they know that you've been, so they know there's an issue, so then they start focusing on you, focusing on your performance. And again, that's where things like the confidential helpline, things like external bodies, perhaps are better while that stigma is still there.
But it also flips over into, as we talked earlier as well, about mental wellness, which is very different from actual mental illness, where, players should be able just to go into the door at the end of the credits, I've got to go and see whatever his name is, Dennis or whatever, and have a chat, and it should be seen as quite normal.
Yeah, but I think also as well, Jeff, that those players will have bad games. It's okay to have a bad game. you know, that's not a mental illness. You know, you have a bad game and you feel down about it. And you feel down about it. And then, you know, maybe even you have the same the next week. But, you know, if it's continued, if you're playing football and you're not enjoying it, then there's a problem. You know, you maybe want to seek help then. But, you know, if it's because of your performances, you know, I don't relate that to mental health. If you've had a bad game, you know, it's a bad game. You know, but a lot of people will maybe look to, you know, the mental health, the mental illness, you know, to cover that up as well.
Quite an interesting tweet here from Joshua, who asks the question: is there still as much stigma? And we know there is a stigma. Is there still as much stigma surrounding mental health in football as there was 10 or 20 years ago? Despite being teammates, do you think players now currently openly talk about these issues in the dressing room?
There's definitely not as much as there was, but again, people are only talking now in football because of what's been going on the last couple of years. How more out in the open it is now. Again, I keep coming back. This, all the other stuff that's going on, the players that have come out, what the PFA are trying to do as well. So the stigma's definitely lifting, but I don't think it'll ever completely go, no.
I think also as well, as you say, Chris, you know, you see a team score a goal and everybody jumps and they celebrate and they enjoy the moment because the team scored. You don't like everybody that's in your team. You know, so it's finding that balance of, you know, this player might come and speak to you, this player might not. But because everybody celebrates together on a Saturday when you win the game or you score a goal, it doesn't mean to say that everybody's together and they all love each other.
Well, the good thing as well that's come from this is the amount of people that have come up to me or been in contact in sport, but also in the street, coming up to us when I'm out and coming up just shaking their hand, thanks for, you know, don't even know the people. The amount of people that have come up to us when I've been out is been incredible.
Fantastic.
Oh, it's been, and that's why we do it for.
Chris, you've been called a veteran from what I can remember, about the last 15 years.
When I was 18.
Are you steeling yourself for retirement? Are you at all anxious? Because that is one period where we have seen ex-athletes, in particular footballers, they really, really struggle when they retire for a number of different reasons. There's the dreadful number of all footballers that get divorced. Something like 70% get divorced in the first year they stop playing because the dynamic has changed. And a lot of footballers do suffer from depression when they stop playing. Is there enough help out there right now to prepare you fellas for when you're no longer putting the boots on?
Hopefully I don't get divorced. But no, listen, I think that...
Are you aware it's going to be a challenge?
I think the biggest challenge for me, because I'm somebody that likes to carry on, a joke, a laugh. You know, I think that will be probably the biggest challenge for me when I finish. But you know, in terms of preparing yourself or having a plan, I'm always someone who I think you need to look beyond, not too far. But I've finished my coaching badges. I wanted to get them done really early because I think that, and that's where a lot of players do struggle, because they come to the end and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what am I going to do? And they start scrambling about. They're under pressure to pay bills, look after a family as such. If you've got a plan in place, I would always encourage any youngster to go and do their coaching badges. You might not get a job, but you've got them. And another thing, for me, I've done a lot of media stuff now as well. So
yes,
even if it's column, TV, radio stuff, it might be when I come to the end of my career, I can look and say, well, I'm good at that, I'm not so good at that. I'm going to leave that one and concentrate on this one. Whereas a lot of players, when they finish, I'm going to try everything. I'll see how this goes. And for me, that's when a lot of people do come into or fall into pitfalls.
There was a fascinating report not so long ago that showed that when athletes train to the level that you guys did, and you stop playing, you produce less of the chemical serotonin. And serotonin is exactly the drug they give you when you're depressed. It's an antidepressant. So it's almost saying you are pre-programmed to be depressed when you stop playing.
Sertraline?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went on that. I got put on that. Sertraline.
And it's serotonin is the actual chemical. It's quite frightening.
I think that underlines the importance of players like preparing and thinking about what they are going to do next. I mean, you touch on coaching and media, but there's limited jobs available in the football industry.
Yeah,
and
I spoke about me in terms of that. I think in terms of going back to players being on this pedestal, if you need to go and get a job, you need to go and get a job.
Yeah, but it's very difficult to have forged out a career but then have to start completely from the bottom at 34, 35, 36, because you've acquired skills, obviously, but not necessarily skills that will prepare you for another industry, let's say. My theory is that footballers have changed dramatically over the last 5-10 years because they're educated tactically, they're educated about nutrition, they're educated on all these different aspects of the game, which means that they have like a more inquisitive mind, and they are perhaps, it's like the stupid footballer is dead. You know, I firmly subscribe to that. I think there's players that want to be directors of football clubs, directors of football, use their experience in that way, or go into other industries. So I think people doing and preparing for that transitional phase is crucial, particularly because you lose your identity, you lose everything you've ever worked for, and if you haven't prepared, you are starting from you know, you're going into entry-level positions in other organisations. I mean,
the feedback I get from a lot of players is they just feel lost.
It's a structure. It's a structure. When I had to stop, you know, after a certain amount of time, I missed that. Once I started feeling better, I missed that structure. Like, you know, we're told from an early age, you're told where to be, what time to train, what to eat, everything like that. And I actually missed that. And now I'm fortunate enough to be back in it. You know, I'll hopefully always be involved in football. I mean, the coaching badges one, I'm going through them now. I mean, I'm still got loads to do, but I wanted to start them years ago. But because of what happened, it was the last thing on mine. You know, I think it was when I was 28, 29, I thought, right, I'll do this. But then after going through what I've been through, you know, I couldn't do it. But now I'm going through them now, and hopefully I'll always be involved with football.
I think also as well, though, that the public put footballers, and I've said it earlier, put footballers on this pedestal, and they don't want to come off it. And I think it's, for a lot of footballers, it can be an embarrassment thing that when they finish, that, you know, people are not there. They're not getting the same communication of, you know, how was the game at the weekend, how it was going on, blah, 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 blah. You know, people want to speak to you. And I think that's maybe something that a lot of players struggle with.
You've mentioned
the attention.
The dressing room's a massive one.
The dressing room. As I said, I've no...
Huge one, the dressing room is. I think that's probably what 90% of players say when what do you miss the most? The dressing room. And I certainly did. I certainly missed the dressing room.
You can't tell everybody what goes on in there, though.
No, you can't. No.
Right, unfortunately we are out of time. It's been an absolutely fascinating evening. I really can't thank you, all three of you, enough. Chris, I wish you continued success with the charity and the wonderful work you're doing. Chris, keep spreading the word, and great to see you looking well.
Thank you.
And Ben, keep up the good work with the PFA as well.
Yes.
Come back and see us again as well. And as you saw at the bottom of the screen, if you do have indeed some problems and you need to talk to somebody, please get in touch with the Samaritans.